Hey everyone, today's story is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about life and the afterlife. It's about a man whose near-death experience shattered his beliefs and revealed something truly shocking. His journey from being a devoted Muslim to embracing Orthodox Christianity after witnessing the depths of hell is nothing short of incredible. In this video, you'll discover the surprising truth about what happens after we die and how it could change your perspective forever. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more life-changing stories like this. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with anyone who needs to hear the truth. Let's dive in. My name is Hassan Farouk, and for 47 years, I was a devoted Muslim. I followed the teachings of Islam without a doubt. I prayed 5 times a day, fasted during Ramadan, and even made the pilgrimage to Mecca. But then everything changed when I died. I know it sounds unbelievable, but I really did die. In those moments between life and death, I saw things that rattled me to my core. Before I dive into my extraordinary journey, let me tell you a little about my life before that day. I grew up in a small town in Pakistan, in a loving Muslim family. My parents taught me the ways of Islam from a young age, and I wholeheartedly embraced our faith. I memorized large parts of the Quran, studied Islamic law, and did my best to live by the teachings of Muhammad. As I got older, my faith only grew stronger. I became well known in my community as a devout man, someone people could look up to. I led prayers at the local mosque, taught Quran classes to kids, and gave talks on Islamic topics. I was proud of my devotion and genuinely believed I was on the right path to paradise. I married a wonderful Muslim woman named Layla, and together we had 3 beautiful children. We raised them in our faith just like our parents had raised us, and life was good. I felt blessed. But as I approached my 47th birthday, I began to feel a strange emptiness inside. Even with my strong faith and good deeds, something felt off. I couldn't quite pinpoint what was missing, but I had this nagging feeling that I wasn't complete. I brushed these thoughts aside, chalking them up to a midlife crisis. I threw myself even deeper into my religious practices, hoping to find the peace I so desperately needed. But no matter how much I prayed or how many good deeds I did, that emptiness lingered. Then came the day that changed everything. I woke up early as usual to do my morning prayers. As I knelt on my prayer rug facing Mecca, I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my chest. At first I tried to shrug it off, thinking it was just indigestion, but the pain got worse and started spreading down my left arm. I called out to Layla, my voice weak and shaky. She rushed into the room and found me clutching my chest, gasping for air. Her eyes went wide with fear as she understood what was happening. "Heart attack," she whispered, reaching for her phone to call for help. The next few minutes felt like a blur filled with pain and panic. I could hear Layla's voice, high-pitched and frantic, as she spoke to the emergency operator. My kids' scared faces peeked in from the doorway, and I wanted to comfort them, to tell them it would be all right, but the words just wouldn't come. The pain was too overwhelming as I lay there on the floor, struggling to breathe. Fear washed over me, not just fear of the pain or dying, but about what might happen next. For the first time ever, I found myself doubting my faith. What if I was wrong? What if everything I had believed was a lie? Those thoughts raced through my mind as the paramedics arrived. They moved fast, attaching monitors to my chest and giving me oxygen. I heard them discussing my condition, using words like critical and immediate intervention. I knew things were serious by the time they loaded me into the ambulance. I caught a glimpse of my family's terrified faces. Layla was trying to hold it together, but I could see the fear in her eyes. My kids were crying, clinging to their mother. I wanted to tell them I loved them, but I just couldn't find the strength to say it. The ambulance sped down the streets, sirens wailing. The paramedics worked desperately to keep me stable, but I could feel myself fading away. The pain in my chest was unbearable, and breathing felt harder by the second. As we got closer to the hospital, everything began to fade to black. The sounds around me turned muffled, almost like I was underwater. I felt a strange sensation, like I was floating, like I was leaving my body behind. My last conscious thought was a prayer, not to Allah as I usually would, but to a God I didn't yet know. And then everything went dark. I don't know how long I was out. It could have been seconds or hours. But when I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in the ambulance or the hospital. I wasn't anywhere I recognized. I found myself in a huge dark space. There was no light, no sound, just a heavy sense of emptiness. I felt lost and confused. Was this death? Was this the afterlife they talked about? As I stood there trying to figure things out, I noticed something odd. The chest pain that had hurt so much was gone. In fact, I felt no pain at all. I looked down at my body, expecting to see the clothes I had been wearing, but all I saw was a faint glowing outline of myself. I called out into the dark, "Hello, is anyone there?" But no one answered. I was all alone in this weird, dark place, and fear started to creep in. This was nothing like what I had thought it would be. Where was the judgment? Where were the angels who were supposed to ask me about my life? Everything I had learned about death and what comes next seemed totally off. As I stood there feeling lost and scared, I had no clue that my journey was really just beginning. I didn't realize I was about to see things that would change everything I believed. I was about to move from the darkness of my old faith into the brightness of a new one. I had no idea that my whole outlook on life was about to be turned upside down. Just as I stood there in the darkness, something started to change. A tiny pinprick of light appeared far off, no bigger than a star in the night sky. At first I thought it was just my imagination, but the light kept getting brighter and larger. I felt drawn to it, like a moth to a flame. Without even thinking about it, I started walking toward it. As I got closer, the light got stronger, but it didn't hurt my eyes. Instead, it wrapped me in a warmth I had never felt before. Suddenly, I was surrounded by the light. It was so bright that I couldn't see anything else, but I wasn't scared. The light felt alive, pulsing with energy and love. Yes, love. That's the only way to put it. In that moment, I felt completely and unconditionally loved. I knew I was in the presence of something or someone much greater than anything I had ever known. This wasn't like I had imagined. It felt more personal, more real. Then I heard a voice. It didn't seem to come from any particular spot. It was all around me and somehow inside me too. The voice was like nothing I had ever encountered before. Powerful yet gentle, authoritative yet loving. "Hassan," the voice said, and a thrill ran through me just hearing my name. "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Those words hit me like a bolt of lightning. I recognized them from somewhere, but in my dazed state, I couldn't recall where. All I knew was that they felt true in a way nothing else ever had. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I am Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God," the voice replied. I was stunned. But I was a Muslim. We believed in Jesus as a prophet, not as the Son of God. Yet here I was, in his presence, feeling a love and peace I had never experienced before. "I'm not a Christian," I stammered. "I've been a Muslim all my life." His voice was full of compassion, but there was a certainty in it. "I've always known you, Hassan. I've always loved you. Now it's time for you to learn the truth." As he spoke, images started flashing in my mind. I saw Jesus being born in a simple stable. I watched him teaching, healing the sick, and performing miracles. I saw him die on a cross and astonishingly rise from the dead. These weren't just stories. I felt like I was witnessing them firsthand. Then the images shifted. I saw stunning churches with golden domes and intricate icons. I noticed men in beautiful robes, their long beards and calm faces leading services filled with incense and chanting. People were crossing themselves and kissing icons, their expressions full of reverence. "What's all this?" I asked, overwhelmed by the beauty and mystery surrounding these visions. "This is my church, Hassan," Jesus answered. "The Orthodox faith, which has kept my teachings alive since the time of my apostles." I felt confused. I had heard of Orthodox Christianity but didn't really understand it. "But Lord," I said, "I thought all Christian churches were the same." "No, Hassan," Jesus said gently. "This tradition has kept the true faith unchanged since the apostles. It's the path I want you to follow." As he spoke, a profound sense of rightness washed over me, like pieces of a puzzle finally snapping together. The beauty and reverence from the images rang true with something deep inside me. "You've been searching for me all your life, Hassan," Jesus continued. "Even when you didn't realize it was me you were after. That emptiness you felt, it was your soul crying out for its true home." His words struck me hard. He was right. All those years of devotion, those prayers and good deeds, yet I had never felt complete. But here, in his presence, I felt whole for the first time. What about Islam? I asked. What about Muhammad? Jesus' voice turned somber. Hassan, there are many who have been led astray by false teachings. It's time for you to see the truth. Suddenly, the warm light faded and I was plunged into darkness and despair. The air was heavy with the stench of sulfur, and I could hear piercing screams in the distance. My heart raced as I realized I was witnessing hell. As I adjusted to the gloom, I finally saw a figure in the distance, writhing in pain. As I got closer, I could hardly believe my eyes. It was Hassan Farouk, the prophet I had looked up to all my life, being tortured by demons. I wanted to look away, but I just couldn't. Hassan's face was twisted in agony as he cried out for mercy, but there was none to be found, only endless suffering. Why is this happening to him? I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Why is he here? Because he led many away from the true path, Jesus replied, his voice heavy with sorrow. He denied my divinity and my sacrifice. He created a false faith that has kept millions from knowing the truth. I watched in horror as the demons kept tormenting Hassan, mocking him, reminding him of every false teaching he had shared and every soul he had led away from Christ. It was unbearable to witness. But what about all the good things he taught? I exclaimed, desperate for answers. What about charity, prayer, and good deeds? Without faith in me, they're not enough, Jesus responded gently. I am the only way to the Father. No one comes to the Father except through me. As he spoke, I noticed countless other souls suffering around us. Some I recognized from history, while others were strangers to me, but they all shared one thing in common. They'd rejected Christ and led others to do the same. This is the fate of all who turn away from me, Jesus said sadly. But Hassan, this isn't what I want for anyone. I died so that all might have eternal life. My love is for everyone, but they have to choose to accept it. With those words, the scene shifted again. We were back in a warm, loving light, and suddenly I saw heaven laid out before me. It was more stunning than anything I could have ever imagined. The colors were brighter, the music more beautiful, and the happiness was fuller than anything on earth. I saw people from every nation, tribe, and language worshiping Jesus. Their faces radiated a joy I had never seen before. Among them were saints I recognized, St. John Chrysostom, St. Basil the Great, St. Gregory the Theologian, and many others leading the heavenly worship, their voices lifted in beautiful songs. In that moment I realized this was everything my soul had been yearning for all along. This was the true communion with God that I had sought but never found in Islam. This is what I offer you, Jesus said, not just for you but for all who believe in me and become part of my church. This is the home I have prepared for those who love me and follow my ways. As I took in the beauty of heaven and remembered the terrifying scenes of hell, my heart felt like it was breaking. For so long, I had been wrong. All my devotion and good deeds had been built on a false foundation. I dropped to my knees, overwhelmed by the realization. Lord Jesus, I cried out, I believe in you. Please forgive me for all those years I turned my back on you. Save me and lead me to your church. I felt his hand on my shoulder, and a wave of love and forgiveness washed over me. In that moment, I knew I was saved. All my sins and the years of misunderstanding were washed away by his grace. Welcome home, my child, Jesus said joyfully. You have a journey ahead to grow and learn in the Orthodox faith, but I'll be with you every step of the way. Then I felt a tugging sensation, and the beautiful scene around me began to blur. I heard distant voices calling my name. It's not your time yet, Hassan, Jesus said. You need to go back. There are many who need to hear the truth you've discovered today. But I don't want to leave you, I protested, tears filling my eyes. I will always be with you, Jesus promised. One day you'll come back home for good, but for now you have work to do. Seek out my church, learn its ways, and share its truth with others. With those words, everything went dark again. I felt myself falling, and then I opened my eyes. I found myself in a hospital bed, surrounded by beeping machines and worried faces. Layla was holding my hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. My kids were there too, looking a mix of scared and relieved. He's awake, Layla exclaimed, and a doctor rushed to my side. "Mr. Farouk, you gave us quite a scare," the doctor said, checking my vital signs. "You were clinically dead for several minutes. It's a miracle you're back with us." A miracle indeed, I thought. If only they knew what I had seen and what I now understood to be true. As the doctor continued to examine me and explain what had happened, my mind was racing from everything I had gone through. I had died, seen heaven and hell, met Jesus, and been called to the Orthodox Church. How could I ever explain this to my family or community? I knew sharing my experience wouldn't be easy. Many would doubt me, and some might even turn against me, but I also knew I couldn't stay quiet. The truth I had learned was too crucial and transformative to keep to myself. As I lay there, still weak but determined, I knew I had to find a way to share my story. Filled with a newfound purpose, I quietly promised myself that I would dedicate my life to understanding the Orthodox Church, diving into its teachings, and sharing the message of Jesus Christ with anyone willing to listen. I wanted to tell everyone about his love, his sacrifice, and the salvation he offers. My journey from being a devoted Muslim to becoming an Orthodox Christian was just starting. But with Jesus by my side, I felt ready to face any challenges that came my way. The light of his love had completely changed my old beliefs, and there was no turning back. As I spent more days in the hospital, I had plenty of time to reflect on everything I had been through. The memory of my encounter with Jesus was still fresh in my mind, along with the disturbing vision of Muhammad's suffering in hell and the beautiful glimpse I had of Orthodox worship in heaven. I felt it was important to share what I had witnessed, but I also knew it could be risky. My family was confused by the changes in me. Layla noticed I had stopped saying my Islamic prayers, and my kids were baffled when I started talking about Jesus and asking questions about Orthodox churches. At first, they thought I was just mixed up after my near-death experience, but as time went on, they started to realize that something big had shifted. "Hassan, what's happened to you?" Layla asked one day, her voice laced with worry. "Why are you talking about Jesus and this Orthodox faith? We're Muslims, remember?" I took a deep breath, knowing this would be a tough conversation. "Layla, my love," I said softly, "I've seen things and had experiences that have changed everything. I met Jesus, and he revealed the truth to me and invited me to his church." Her eyes widened in shock. "Oh," she gasped, using an Arabic phrase to ask for Allah's forgiveness. "Hassan, you can't be serious. This is blasphemy." "It's not blasphemy, Layla. It's the truth. Jesus is real. He is the Son of God, and his church is the true path to salvation. I saw Muhammad in hell being punished for leading people astray." As soon as the words left my mouth, I realized I had gone too far too fast. Layla pulled back as if I had hit her, and she left the room in tears. I could hear her crying in the hallway. My kids were just as stunned. My oldest son, Ahmad, looked at me with a mix of confusion and anger. "Father, how can you say that? You taught us Islam our whole lives. How can you turn your back on it now for some foreign religion?" It broke my heart to see the hurt and confusion in their eyes, but I knew I couldn't deny what I had experienced. I know this is tough to wrap your head around, but I'm not backing down from this. I've found the truth in Jesus Christ and his church, and I want you all to know about it too. The next few weeks were really challenging. Word spread fast in our community about my conversion. Friends stopped visiting, calls just dried up, and even my family started keeping their distance. I was labeled a traitor, an apostate, and even a madman. The imam from our local mosque came by to talk to me, trying to convince me that I was just confused, that Satan had deceived me. But I knew what I had experienced was real. Nothing could shake my newfound faith in Jesus or my wish to join the Orthodox Church. As my health improved and I got ready to leave the hospital, I realized that the life I knew was over. I couldn't go back to leading prayers at the mosque or teaching the Quran, and I couldn't pretend to believe in something I now knew was false. The day I was discharged, Layla was there to take me home, but the mood in the car was heavy. After a while, she finally said, "Hassan, I don't understand what's happened to you, but I can't support this. You need to come back to Islam, or I don't know if I can stay with you." Her words stung, but they didn't shock me. I had been prepared for this. "Layla, I love you," I said, "but I can't deny what I know to be true. I hope that one day you'll understand and join me in this wonderful faith." When we got home, things didn't get any better. Our house, which was once filled with warmth and love, now felt cold and uninviting. The Islamic calligraphy and symbols that had once comforted me now seemed empty and meaningless. That night, as I lay in bed struggling to sleep, I prayed to Jesus. Lord, I whispered, give me strength. Show me how to find your church. Help my family see the truth. As if in response, a deep sense of peace washed over me. I remembered Jesus' words, I will always be with you. I knew that no matter what happened, I wasn't alone. The next day, I set out to find an Orthodox church. It wasn't easy in a mostly Muslim country, but I finally stumbled upon a small Russian Orthodox mission on the outskirts of the city. With a mix of nerves and excitement, I attended my first divine liturgy. When I walked into the church, I was struck by its beauty, the icons, the incense, the chanting. It was all so different, yet so familiar, like something from a half-remembered dream. As the service began, I felt tears fill my eyes, tears streaming down my face. I realized this was it. This was the vision of heaven I had seen. This felt like home. After the service, I chatted with Father Sarge. I told him my story, half expecting him to think I was out of my mind, but he listened patiently, his eyes full of kindness. My son, he said when I finished, God works in mysterious ways. He has called you to his church, and we welcome you with open arms. But the road ahead won't be easy. Are you ready for the challenges? I nodded, a mix of fear and determination swirling inside me. I am, Father. I know it will be tough, but I believe this is the truth. I want to learn everything I can about the Orthodox faith. Father Sergei smiled. Then let's start your catechism. You have a lot to learn, but God will guide you every step of the way. And so my journey into Orthodoxy began. I spent every free minute at the church, diving into the faith, attending services, and getting ready for baptism. The beauty of Orthodox teachings, the depth of its spirituality, and the richness of its traditions filled the emptiness I had felt for so long. But while I was growing in my new faith, things at home were falling apart. Layla and I barely spoke, and when we did, it often led to arguments. My kids avoided me, unsure of how to connect with this new version of their dad. The hardest moment came when Layla finally laid it all out there. Hassan, she said, her voice shaking, I've tried to understand, but I can't. You need to give up this Christian nonsense and come back to Islam, or I'm leaving with the kids. I felt like my heart was breaking. I loved my family more than anything, but I couldn't turn away from Jesus and his church, not after what I had seen and felt. Layla, I said, fighting back tears, I love you and the kids more than you can imagine, but I can't renounce Jesus and his church. They are the truth, the only way to salvation. I pray that one day you'll see that and join me in this beautiful faith. Just 2 days later, Layla and the kids were gone. The house that had been filled with laughter and life was now quiet and empty. I had lost everything, my family, my community, my old life. But even in my deepest pain, I felt Christ's presence comforting me, giving me strength. I threw myself into learning more about Orthodoxy. Father Sergei became not just my spiritual guide, but a good friend who supported me throughout this journey. I really started to grasp the deep aspects of my faith, the Holy Trinity, the Incarnation, the meaning behind the Divine Liturgy. Every bit of new information felt like finding a place I had been missing. After months of catechism, the day of my baptism finally came. Standing in the baptismal font with Father Sergei as he recited those ancient prayers, I felt a deep sense of peace wash over me. When I came up from the water, now called John after St. John of Damascus, who was a strong defender of orthodoxy, it felt like I was truly starting fresh. The months that followed were a mix of tough and rewarding experiences. I faced some isolation from my Muslim friends and dealt with a lot of loneliness, but at the same time, I discovered a fulfilling joy in growing my new faith. I made it a point to attend every service I could. I fasted according to the church calendar, and I started learning the Jesus prayer. One day, while I was helping to clean up the church after a service, Father Sergei came up to me with a thoughtful expression on his face. "John," he said, using the name I received in baptism, "I've been thinking about your story. It's powerful. Have you ever thought about sharing it more broadly?" I paused for a moment. "I've thought about it, Father, but I'm worried. What if it puts me in danger? What if it causes more trouble for my family?" Father Sergei nodded. clearly understanding my concerns. Those concerns are valid, my son, but think about how many others could be inspired by your journey. How many Muslims like you might be searching for the truth without even knowing it. His words resonated with me, and I thought back to my vision, where Jesus told me I had a mission to fulfill. "You're right, Father," I said slowly, "but how do I even start?" We brainstormed some possibilities and agreed that I would begin by writing down my full story. Father Sergey offered to help me polish it up and translate it into Russian for the church's website. We even planned a few talks where I could share my journey with the local Orthodox community and anyone else who's interested. Writing my testimony turned out to be a pretty emotional experience as I recounted my near-death experience, my encounter with Christ, and my path to orthodoxy. I went through every moment again, sometimes having to pause because the memories were so intense. Once I finished writing it, we posted my testimony on the church's website and several Orthodox forums, and the response was incredible. I received messages from all over the world, from other converts and lifelong Orthodox Christians. Encouraged by my journey and hearing from Muslims curious about Christianity, not all the feedback was kind. I started getting threats from radical groups who saw me as a traitor. Father Sergey and the church community came together to support me and keep me safe. Despite the risks, I felt a powerful urge to connect the Muslim world I once knew with the Orthodox Christian faith I had chosen. As my story got out, I was invited to speak at Orthodox events, sharing my experiences, answering questions about Islam from an Orthodox viewpoint, and helping the church find better ways to reach out to Muslims. About a year after my baptism, I received a message that knocked me off my feet. It was from Muhammad, my oldest son. He said he had read my story online and it made him rethink everything he believed. He wanted to meet up. Our reunion was emotional. Muhammad had so many questions, and we ended up talking for hours. By the end of our chat, with tears streaming down his face, he asked if he could meet with Father Sergey to learn more about Orthodox faith. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said after we prayed together. "I'm sorry for how I treated you and for not listening earlier." I pulled him into a tight hug, my heart bursting with joy. "There's nothing to forgive, son. I'm just grateful that God has opened your eyes to the truth." In the following years, I witnessed God working wonders. My testimony got translated into different languages, reaching Muslims all over the world. I started speaking at various conferences, not only sharing my story, but also teaching Orthodox beliefs to Muslims. It wasn't always smooth. I still faced persecution and threats. There were days I missed my old life and the comfort of what I knew. But every time I saw someone come to Christ or received a note from a reader whose life had changed for the better, I knew it was all worth it. 5 years after my near-death experience, I got word that Layla had read my story. She asked to see me. I felt nervous and didn't know what to expect, but agreed. When I saw her, my heart ached. She looked older and worn out, but there was something different in her eyes, a softness that hadn't been there before. "Hassan," she said, her voice shaky, "I think I'm ready to learn more about your faith, about orthodoxy." Tears welled up in my eyes as I began to share with her about Christ's love and the beauty of the church. As I talked, I noticed that same spark of hope in Layla's eyes that I had seen in Ahmad's. By the end of our chat, she asked to meet with Father Sergey to start catechism. It wasn't a quick fix, and we still had a lot to work through and heal. But gradually, our family started to come back together, not as Muslims, but as Orthodox Christians. Looking back on the path God has led me down, I'm truly amazed. I went from being a devoted Muslim to becoming an Orthodox Christian, from being a respected leader in my community to facing persecution as an evangelist. I went from losing my family to witnessing them find their faith. God has been there every step of the way. I know my mission isn't over. There are still countless Muslims who need to learn about Christ and His church. But I'm no longer scared. I've seen the truth, felt God's love in its fullness through orthodoxy, and I know that in the end, Christ's love triumphs over all. My name is John, once known as Hassan Farouk, and this is my story. How I came to die and saw Muhammad in hell, but more importantly, how I met Christ and found real life in His church, which has made all the difference. The years after my conversion have been a journey of constant growth and challenges. Every day, I become more convinced of the truth I found during my near-death experience and the beauty of the faith I now follow. My life revolves around the flow of the church, the cycle of feasts and fasts and the divine liturgy. The rich traditions have become the heartbeat of my life. I'm continually amazed by the depth and beauty of Orthodox theology and practice. One of the biggest changes has been in my prayer life. The Jesus prayer, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner, has become my daily companion. I pray it while walking, working, and as I get ready to sleep. It helps me stay centered and keeps me connected to Christ throughout the day. I've also delved into the richness of Orthodox spirituality through the writings of the Church Fathers. Works by St. John Chrysostom, St. Basil the Great, and St. Gregory Palamas have opened my eyes to new understandings of God and His love for us. My relationship with icons has been another beautiful discovery. Coming from an Islamic background where images in worship were not allowed, I was cautious at first, but as Father Sergei taught me about their significance as windows to heaven, I began to see them in a whole new light, come to really cherish them now. My little apartment is packed with icons, and I find a lot of peace in praying in front of them. Life hasn't been without its ups and downs, though. I still deal with some pushback from my old Muslim community. There have been times when people have shouted at me in the street, and I've lost track of how many threatening messages I've received online. But every time it happens, I remember Christ's advice about praying for those who treat you badly, and I keep them in my prayers. My outreach to Muslims is picking up steam, and with my bishop's support, I've started a small ministry focused on dialogue between Muslims and Orthodox Christians. We create literature, hold workshops, and offer help to Muslims curious about our faith. One of the best parts of this work has been witnessing other Muslims coming to Christ. Each baptism I see takes me back to my own journey and fills me with gratitude for God's kindness. My family's path to Orthodoxy has been a special blessing, too. After Layla started her catechism, our younger kids wanted to join in. Watching them grow in their faith, seeing their faces light up when they receive Holy Communion, and hearing them sing the hymns brings me so much joy I can hardly put it into words. There have been tough times as well. Adjusting to life as Christians in a mostly Muslim community hasn't been a walk in the park for them. They've lost friends, dealt with teasing at school, and struggled with the big changes in how we live. Yet, through it all, I've seen their faith get stronger. As for me, I'm continuing to learn more about theology. With Father Sarge's encouragement, I've started formal studies. The more I learn, the more I realize how little I truly know and just how beautiful and vast this faith is. I've also found a lot of joy in serving, whether it's reading during services, helping with charity work, or just cleaning the church. Each act of service feels like a gift of love to Christ. Looking back at my life as a Muslim, I can see how God was preparing me for this journey all along. The focus on prayer, submitting to God's will, and living a moral life. These aspects of Islam were like shadows guiding me towards the full truth I've found. Of course, there are still times when I feel sad thinking about the years I spent in spiritual darkness or the struggles my family faced during my conversion. But then I remember St. Paul's words about God working all things together for good. Things work out for the best for those who love Him. And I can't help but feel thankful for the journey that's brought me here. As I'm writing this, I'm getting ready for a speaking tour across different communities in the country. I'll be sharing my story and talking about good ways to share the faith with Muslims. This is a responsibility I take seriously, and I'm always praying for God's guidance. Going from Islam to Christianity has taught me so much, but if I had to pick one major lesson, it's about the incredible depth of God's love. The God I know now isn't some distant figure. He's a caring Father who became human to save us and continues to reveal Himself through His church and sacraments. I have no idea what the future will bring, but I do know that whatever happens, joy or sadness, ease or struggle, Christ will be by my side, and that's more than enough for me. I'm Hassan Farouk, and this is my ongoing story. I once wandered through the misconceptions of Islam, but Christ found me, showed me the truth, and welcomed me into His church. Each day, I'm thankful for this new life I have in Him. Glory to God for everything. If this amazing journey from Islam to Orthodox Christianity resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell to get updates on more inspiring stories of lives changed by Christ. Share this video with someone you think might be looking for the truth. Remember, your simple act of sharing could be the first step in someone's journey toward a complete faith.